We are at the 36th District Court in Detroit, Michigan for a first appearance before Judge Dawn White. The defendant decided to take a Greyhound bus for a trip across the state line, but traveling on the bus was also the task force trailing him. Let's just say his carry-on luggage contained no underwear or a toothbrush.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Banks.
Good morning.
Court is calling case number 25-056549-01. The people of the state of Michigan versus Freddie Leonard Banks. Appearances, please.
Thank you, Magistrate. Steve Vincent, P 71917.
And good morning, Your Honor. Sydney Rushing, P 78830, appearing on behalf of Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks has been advised of his constitutional rights, waives formal reading, stands mute, and asks that a not guilty plea be entered on his behalf.
Okay, the court will enter not guilty plea on behalf of Mr. Banks. Bond recommendation, Mr. Vincent.
Magistrate, we're going to be asking for $100,000 cash assurity. We're also going to be asking for a tether as well as house arrest. This one's serious. First off, we have a defendant who's on probation in 2 different jurisdictions currently out of Macomb as well as Oakland. We have a prior conviction for armed robbery and felony firearms starting in Highland Park, ultimately ended getting its disposition out of 3rd Circuit. And now we have a defendant who had been surveilled by multiple law enforcements. He's on a Greyhound bus coming from Nebraska to Detroit, and he's found with, and the police were alerted of this, and they knew he was on that bus waiting for him. He was found with over 70 grams of methamphetamines, as well as crack, including, I believe it was at this time, $4,300 in currency. The defendant previously was found earlier this year after the police had stopped him in a different jurisdiction with over what I see as $40,000 worth of currency. Because this defendant is currently on probation in 2 different jurisdictions, and I don't know whether or not there are conditions where he can leave the state of Michigan, but regardless, because he's on 2 different probations, because of his history, because of all of this investigation, including the fact that he was found with all of this methamphetamine, that he was investigated, surveilled, and then found, we find him to be not only a danger, but a flight risk, because he was coming from an out-of-state jurisdiction when the police ended up locating him. So respectfully, we're asking for that $100,000 cash assurity. We find that to be conservative because even as a surety, that's not even as much as what he was previously found with earlier this year, but we'll stick to the $100,000 with the tether house arrest.
This question.
Your Honor, I'm asking Your Honor to consider a personal bond in this matter. I understand Mr. Vincent's request for a tether. I wouldn't have an objection to that because I do understand his concerns and his argument regarding flight. Your Honor, in relations to the other matters that are in regard to probation, from after speaking with my client in the Oakland County case, he's completed all of his terms and conditions that he's had for that. But obviously he's going to face whatever type of penalties he may have for, them in that court. Here, we're worried about this matter. Your Honor, this matter, he was not found with a weapon or anything like that when he was approached by officers. In the investigator's report, it looks like he was very cooperative with them as answering their questions, not resisting in any type of way. So, Your Honor, I do believe that a personal bond with GPS tether would suffice for, one, protection of the community and for to negate any type of flight risk. Your Honor, my client does work. He works at Chrysler. He's been there for 4 years. He may be terminated if he's not, released soon so he can, get back to work. So I'm asking that if you do order the GPS tether, that he be allowed to leave for work. And he also has 1 child, so any medical appointments or anything like that, I'd ask he be allowed to attend those as well.
And Ms. Rushing, you or Mr. Vincent can respond. Do we know why he's being held at Garden City Police Department?
I asked specifically, and Garden City said, this is just where we hold them. I don't know why. I have no idea why he's not at DPD versus Garden City, but that I asked, and that was the answer I received is this is where we hold them.
Yeah,
So
I can expand on that if you'd like.
Yes, yes, state your name, please.
Officer Jacob Weiss, I'm a task force officer at the DEA. Our parent agency is Garden City, so we house our prisoners here at Garden City Police Department.
Okay. So no other charges than what's currently before this court?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Ms. Rushing, oh, Mr. Vincent, are you aware if there are any PV warrants? Probation violation warrants issued yet?
I'm not. I'm sure, and you know, I can't say this with certainty, but this is an incident that just occurred just a couple of days ago. So I'm sure they're forthwith. Just to clear up those probationary matters. He may have been in abeyance with them through the present, or at least through, well, not even, because you know it may have charges from earlier in January, including this. But he's on probation for 3 years. So he hasn't, you know, taken care of that. He was just put on probation in the middle of last year for 2 different incidents out of 2 different jurisdictions. So just to clear that up, I didn't want the court to think that those probations were over. They're active, they're ongoing, and they're not even a year old. And there's I'm sorry, City. And just one other thing, and I appreciate defense counsel's candor here. There's a high likelihood of conviction here. Not only do we have all of this surveillance and all of this great investigative work done by the police and the DEA, we have confessions from this individual, and he's facing multiple 20-year offenses. So respectfully, Judge, and defense counsel is doing her job, and I can appreciate that. But when we talk about, you know, a danger, there is a danger. There's an inherent danger when we have somebody who's being charged with delivery and manufacture of drugs that can kill people. And he's coming from different jurisdictions outside of the state. And he's been surveilled. And he's already been found to have copious amounts of currency. And now he has currency on top of these drugs. And he's bringing them back to our community. So, and I'm sorry, I'll let defense counsel have the last word. But when we talk about, you know, what bond is for, flight risk and or a danger to the community, I think it's evident and quite clear that not only is he a danger, he is a flight risk. So respectfully, we're just going to continue with that ask.
Okay, last word, Ms. Rushing.
yes, Your Honor. I hope I wasn't or the court didn't take that I was misleading them into thinking that his probation was over. It's just that the terms that he was given, he completed. Obviously he's still on probation at this point, but you know, if probation releases him early because he's done everything, we know that happens from time to time. I was just saying that he's done the terms that he's supposed to in that matter. But Your Honor, again, when protection of the community, this involves possession of, I understand, you know, the drugs at hand. But Your Honor, again, a GPS tether house arrest with only work, with only being allowed to go to work would protect the community. He wouldn't be anywhere but in his house or at work. And obviously that, you know, answers the flight risk as well. And Your Honor, I understand the arguments regarding being found with big amounts of cash earlier this year. I'm not sure if there's a case involving that or not. I don't know. But Your Honor, it's not illegal to have money or things like that, right? So what we have in front of us today, I do think that a personal bond with GPS tether would be the least restrictive means that would, 1, protect the community, 2, make sure that there's not a flight issue, and 3, that he'll show up to court.
Okay, thank you.
And Your Honor, my client is innocent. I was just gonna say, and my client is innocent until proven guilty. So I understand there may be confessions, things of that, but we still got to get to the end line. There still has to be a conviction before any type of sentence is rendered.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the arguments of both parties. But I do have a question for Officer Weiss. Can you tell me if there are any holds from any other jurisdictions?
There are no holds.
For Mr. Banks? Okay. All right, thank you. So the court, having heard the arguments, the court is concerned about the amount of drugs that were found. Mr. Vincent, I noticed that you indicated some higher amounts that perhaps were found, but it looks like the charges are for less than 50 grams, counts 2 and 3.
Count 1 though is for the meth over 50.
Okay, and that's not reflected in the warrant. Let me see. Let me look at the.
It's the first
complaint.
count. Am I
It's
wrong
the
there?
first count.
The count
It's the
1.
first count, but it's not reflected. It just says 20 years, and it just says delivery manufacturer of meth. It doesn't say what amount.
Oh, the meth
actual-
count doesn't. If I'm wrong, so the meth count it doesn't have a a specified number amount. I was just stating the fact that he was found with over 70 grams of the meth.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, the court, having heard the arguments of the parties, the court will set bond in the amount of 50,000 cash surety. The court is going to impose tether if you post bond. Mr. Banks, no, Ms. Rushing,
Yes, Your Honor.
you indicated your client was working.
Yes, he works at Chrysler, Judge. He's been there about 4 years.
Okay, but the court is concerned about that. So at this point, the court is gonna set a bond at 50,000 cash surety, tether house arrest. Is that affordable, unaffordable bond?
It's unaffordable, Judge.
Okay, then there will be a bond redetermination hearing on Monday. 3/24/25 at 9:00 a.m. before Judge McConicle or Judge Williams. So hold on. And again, the numerous controlled substances found and the fact that we have a bus trip and these different agencies involved in the investigation of Mr. Banks causes the court some concern as to him being a flight risk. Certainly the drugs themselves, pose a danger, but I'm more concerned about I'm concerned about both, but I think here, for the record, flight. Okay, then that's the bond. Mr. Banks, sir, while you're on bond, you're not to use or possess any illegal controlled substances, sir. Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then you have 2 court dates. You have a probable cause conference that's scheduled for April the 3rd at 8:30. That will be before Judge Jefferson by Zoom. Then you have the right to preliminary examination, which is scheduled for April the 10th at 8:30. That will be in person in the 36th District Court. Again, if you're not able to appear by Zoom, make sure that you appear in person if you post your bond. Okay, that concludes this matter.
Thank you so much, Your Honor.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and leave a comment.